Hey, what's going on, guys? And welcome back to the Literally Nothing But Everything podcast with your host, the one and only Mike Rispoli. So March Madness has started. Are you guys filling out your March Madness brackets? I filled one out and my bracket busted early, but story of my life. Hey! As if that's the only thing a girl has to be disappointed about when dating me. And I think it's safe to say that with that last statement, I think my dating life is officially over. And just like my dating life, I feel like my March Madness bracket is also over because, of course, BYU and Kentucky decided to lose early, so that totally screwed me. I don't know why I do this every year. It's all just a crapshoot anyways. It's wild because it's also like the people who end up winning these are usually like, oh, that's a cute mascot. I'm going to go with that team. And I mean, honestly, there really is no like surefire way of filling this out. You could watch every game. You could do all of the research. But just given all the upsets and what could possibly happen, I mean, never forget when Florida Gulf Coast, oh man, how many years ago was that now? Was that like 6 years ago? When the hell did that happen? But they were like a 15 seed. They made it to like the Elite Eight. So it just proves that anything can friggin' happen during March Madness. But you know why I fill it out? It's because this is like that weird time of the year where football's done and baseball is just kind of getting started. So ultimately what it comes down to is I just need something to watch here to ease my boredom. I actually got some of these games on now. Is it me or have these games this year just like kind of sucked? Like, I don't know. I've been watching March Madness for the past couple days now and I'm just like, my God. Like, these scores are lower than my self-esteem here. Like, I don't know, is it me, or do the games this year just seem kind of boring? Like, I don't remember a year where, like, the games haven't been this intense. And it's funny because all of the games seem to be just massive blowouts, or they seem to be really low scoring. So, I don't know. Hopefully, as the tournament progresses, the games get a little bit more competitive. Maybe the games will start becoming a little bit better. I don't know. It just seems like a really weird year so far. I don't know how else to explain it. Like, I'm sitting here on a Saturday night, I'm watching the Texas-Tennessee game, and it's 8 seconds left in the second half, and the score's 59-55, Tennessee winning. Well, now, all right, guy just got a free throw, so it's 60-55. But is it me, or is this just like one of the most low-scoring games possible? Oh, all right, Texas just put up a three-point shot, make it 60-58 with 3 seconds left, just under 4 seconds left. But alright, so considering the fact that my bracket is just totally busted, so right now I'm actually just rooting for end scores because I'm also in a box pool. Oh, isn't that usually just for the Super Bowl? Well, yeah, normally it is, but we use that same philosophy for the whole extent of the March Madness tournament. And it's really fun because in basketball, every number is good because you have like 1s, 2s, and 3s that can score. So it's not like in a Super Bowl box pool where you're hoping for like decent numbers that end in like a 3, 5, a 0, a 7, possibly an 8. So I think with the basketball, it kind of gives you a little bit more leniency as to like what you can root for. Like in football, you're looking for like very specific numbers, like maybe a 5-8, because then you're thinking like a common score could be like 35-28. But in this pool, it doesn't necessarily matter because you can have like a 1-0 as your final scores. But because the games tend to be so close in comparison, every number seems to be good. But if you're watching March Madness and you want to root with me, my numbers are 6 for the leading team and 0 for the losing team. But I didn't end up winning anything with this Tennessee game because the final score was 62-58. Let me see. Who ended up winning that? 62-58. Nobody that I know. But hey, congratulations to the nobody that I know for winning some money. But like, alright, so the Duquesne, I don't fucking know how you pronounce that. Wow, I am a total idiot. It's fucking Duquesne. Oh, you watch March Madness, you don't even know how to pronounce Duquesne? Well, guys, number one, it's like, I never said I was smart. And number two, it's late and I had a brain fart. I mean, guys, looking at that word was like looking at the word colonel. But alright, so plowing ahead here for a little bit. But you know what, we're going to kind of fast forward and see how good my editing skills are here, because as I've been working on this, we're coming down to the end of the Oregon-Creighton game with the score being 62-60, 23 seconds left on the clock, and it looks like Creighton's coming down. Don't foul. Nobody should be fouling in this situation. Sorry, guys. If you can't tell, I'm a little distracted. Oh. Wow. All right. And Creighton just decided to tie it up 62-62. Oh, and Oregon just missed it to bring the game into OT. Is this the first OT game of March Madness so far? I don't know. Like I said, I haven't really been totally paying attention because the games have kind of sucked. I mean, even this game, it's in OT. The score is 62-62. So, I mean, normally you would have thought that the score would have been like high 70s, maybe low 80s at this point. I mean, it's kind of like I said, like the only close games are very low scoring. So I don't know if it's just a matter of like the defense are just playing that well or if these kids just aren't like making their shots. Hey, show some respect. These aren't kids, they're young men. Are you kidding me? These kids are younger than I am. But the beautiful thing with OT means that my box pool is still alive. So I might still be in the money here. And we got 51.8 seconds left. And the score is 69-66. So 6-0 might still happen. 37 seconds might still be possible. Oh, 69-68. Oregon's losing. Will their Cinderella story end today? You know, honestly, I think we need a better term than Cinderella story when it comes to some of these teams. It's not like all these teams didn't have an initial shot at making the tournament. Oh, well, you know, it's just because they really come from, like, not having a good chance at making it. Well, you know what? I mean, they made the tournament, so clearly they have a shot at winning. I mean, look at the history of the NCAA tournament. How many upsets have there been? I mean, my God, I cannot tell you how many times Duke has screwed me being a 1 seed, and they ended up losing in, like, the first or second round. Like, I don't know, to me it's just an underdog story. Like, that's all you can define it as. Oh, well, you know, Cinderella was an underdog too, because she didn't come from anything. Yeah, but all of these teams obviously had some sense of winning if they made the fucking tournament. Like, you had to win in order to get in. Plus, all of these teams were already pre-ranked, and Cinderella came from a ranking of a 0. I mean, the only thing remotely close is just trying to find these guys' shoe sizes, because they're all massive. All right, so we got 17 seconds left, first overtime, 71-71. And now we're going into a second overtime. Oh my God, this game's actually getting kind of wild. See, this is the type of March Madness that I was fucking expecting. It only took until freaking 12:15 on Saturday night, or 12:15 Sunday morning to be correct.
I don't have an answer for that.
Nobody asked you, Siri. Sorry, I'm wearing my Apple Watch, and for some reason it decided to pick something up. But I was like, Jesus. Sorry, I keep losing my train of thought here. But now that my bracket is busted, the only thing that's really keeping me invested in March Madness is this box pool that I'm a part of. And it's funny because even though I might not be the person that like wins money, it's really fun to see like where the money's going to go into somebody else's pocket. Like, especially like down the line when free throws happen and there's like maybe, I don't know, like 10 seconds left and there's fouls and all that stuff. It's really fun just watching like $150 just go from one person and then they shoot it, they make it, and then that 150 goes into somebody else's pocket. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I guess I just like watching people get screwed. As long as it's not me or somebody I know, I don't go fuck. But what I try to do is I tend to try and find games that are close to ending in the second half because that's like where all the action is, right? Like I'll try and watch a game that's got 5 minutes left in it that's kind of close in score. Because to me, that's where the fun is. Like, you get to last, like, 30 seconds of the game, which ends up being, like, the last, I don't know, like, 5 minutes due to timeouts and fouls or whatever it is. So, it's just so funny watching, like, free throws, and then you're just seeing, like, money jump from one box to the next box within a matter of, like, 0.2 seconds. So, it's actually kind of fun to watch. But also, I also tend to watch games that are pretty much close to finishing anyways. So that way I just get to see who the winners are in the boxes in general. Like, who cares if it's a blowout? I just want to see if I won some money or not. But, yeah, so March Madness is actually where a lot of my betting ends up going. I don't really do DraftKings. Actually, I don't do DraftKings at all just because I'm too nervous for myself on trying that. Like, knowing myself, it's like, go big or go home. And the last thing I need to do is just lose a bunch of money trying to bet on shit that I really know nothing about here. So I don't really fucks with sports gambling. I think it would be fun, like, if I had somebody that I could do it with, so that way I'm not, like, totally out in the weeds here. But it's just not something that I necessarily want to partake in just yet. Last thing I need is some guy showing up with a crowbar. Hey, I'm here to fix your car. But then he ends up fucking busting my knees. All right, so 81-71, and Creighton is winning. Minute 25 left on the clock. Money is still available. Oh, aren't you worried about talking about gambling on your podcast? Well, sports betting is now legal in Connecticut. Well, employers might say that you're irresponsible because of that. But I'm not saying you gotta take out a fucking loan. Just spend what you can. And you know the saying, you gotta spend money in order to make money, which I think is also every gambler's motto. All right, double overtime, and that's how this game ends. What seemingly started out as kind of a slow game ended up being pretty good, so I'm actually not unhappy that I stayed up to watch it. But I think what ultimately happened was I think Oregon just kind of ran out of steam. I mean, they ended up losing by 13. You would have thought that by the way the game was going, they would have lost by like 2 or 3. But congratulations to Crichton for making it to the next round. But all right, back to DraftKings. If I were to try it, I think I would actually do it with football. If I were to try it, just because football is the thing that I can mostly focus on. I mean, I do fantasy, but in general, I mean, think about it. Football, it's one day a week. You get to watch every game. I mean, I have YouTube TV, so I'm able to watch every game now because we have the NFL package along with it. So I can just keep my eye on certain things. And plus, knowing about, like, especially now with what's going on in free agency and just seeing where players are moving or whatever, you kind of have a sense of where a team might be going. And you also know based on what a player might have done last year, what a team might have done last year, going into free agency, you can kind of see where they're going this year. My Pats are still going to fucking suck, so I would put no money on the Pats if I were to do it. Just fun facts. But it's funny because I've always been really invested in March Madness. Even though I didn't go to a D1 school, I've always just loved March Madness. There's just such like a competitiveness about it. And it's funny because when I was in college, I had to take some bullshit science class. It was part of like our core curriculum. I don't know why we had to take it, but we all had to take like 5 core classes. And I think it was just so that way if you were going in as an undecided major, you took a class, you maybe got a little bit of an interest in it, so then they thought that you would major in that, depending if you found an interest or not. But I remember sitting in this class that I had no care about in the world. So I'm sitting there, I got my NCAA.com up, and instead of listening to the lecture, I'm just watching games. And what I did was I opened up like 4 tabs on my computer screen, and then I put all the tabs into different windows. So I had like a grid going where I could watch all 4 games going at once. And I noticed that the kid next to me also had a few games up. So I was like, hey, dude, like, why don't you come sit next to me? And then you put up like these 4 games. I'll keep my 4 games up, and then we can kind of cross screens. So he kind of scooches in next to me. And this was in 2014 year. So I can't remember what team it was. I want to say it was Xavier. It was either Xavier or Gonzaga. I cannot remember. This was fucking, oh my God, almost 10 years. Actually, 10 years ago now. Jesus. I'm really dating myself. So I don't remember what the team was, but it was a really close game. It was tied with like 3 seconds left. One of the teams inbounds the ball. Guy gets to the half court line, heaves up a shot, ends up going in. And I just go, oh my God, because it was a wild shot. And the professor just looks at us and he just goes, what happened in the game? So now he knows that I'm not paying attention. So I'm just like, hey, man, like Gonzaga or Xavier, whatever the fuck team it was. I'm like, they just fucking put up a shot to win the game. And he goes over to his bag, takes out his bracket, goes, son of a bitch, and starts crossing shit out. So that actually kind of made me feel a little bit better that I wasn't paying attention because, I don't know, it didn't make his day, but it definitely made mine. So I will never forget that. But yeah, this year, my winner is UConn. I mean, come on. How are you going to root against this team? Especially considering the fact that this year they seem to really have a chance to win it. That is the team that I grew up watching. My dad is a UConn alum. I grew up watching them. That is my team. Go ahead, call me biased, but you know what? I'm excited. I mean, they went through a little bit of a dry spell with having some bad years. I mean, those Kevin Ollie years, oh my God, we try to forget them. Oh, but they won a championship under Kevin Ollie. Yeah, but those were all Jim Calhoun's recruits. So I don't even want to hear it. Like, no offense to Kevin Ollie, but like, you kind of deserve to have an asterisk next to your name considering none of your recruits ended up winning a championship. But then after Ollie, UConn decided to hire Dan Hurley. And it's funny because being in school in Rhode Island, I never even heard of the guy until he came into UConn. And he's really kind of revamped the program to get it back to where we wanted it. I mean, they won last year. So that's my team this year. They've been fantastic all year. It's really hard for me to root against them. I know that they're the number 1 overall. I don't care. Anything can happen in March Madness. I understand that. But I mean, to prove to you how good of a team they are this year, I just saw a stat that said the past 7 games that they've played, they've won by 13 or more points, which is wild. So even UConn, based on that stat alone, they're actually kind of helping my argument here with winning in blowouts. Like, I swear to God, like teams are only winning in blowouts, or if the scores are close, they're just really low scores. Like, I'm just going to keep reiterating that because I just find it so bizarre. And I know that I mentioned that part of my reason as to why I watch March Madness is because there's really nothing else for me to watch this year. So you might be asking yourself, oh, well, why don't you watch the NBA or why don't you watch hockey? Well, honestly, hockey is actually the next thing I kind of want to get into. I just don't watch it enough or pay attention enough to like actually follow it. But how many of you actually follow the NBA? I mean, I could give zero fucks about watching the NBA. I feel like college is just way more interesting. Like watching the NCAA tournament is way more interesting to me than watching any NBA game. And the reason why is because unlike the NBA, college isn't just about super teams. So the talent's a little bit more raw. Like, you don't have, like, a LeBron just to absolutely overtake a whole game. And I mean, yeah, of course, in the NCAA, you're going to have your standouts, but it truly comes down to, like, a team game. Like, it's not a matter of just passing the ball to your one guy or having another guy, like, play as a decoy. And, you know, I remember having this conversation with one of my friends a few weeks ago when I was in Boston. We ended up making our way to a bar and we were watching the Celtics play, and I can't remember who they were playing. I want to say it was the Suns, because I think I remember KD playing. But while we were watching that game, my friend was looking at the screen, and he was just like, oh, look, like you're not going to see one of those types of athletic plays in a college game. But I also kind of think that that's an unfair argument because the game is so much different in the NBA versus college, right? Plus, these guys are freaking freaks. They're all like 6'5" and have like 5-foot verticals. Like, sorry if 6'2" Jimmy's also just trying to get an education on top of it. Like, in the NBA, you have the best of the best college athletes, number one, but then you've also got the best of the best foreign athletes that the NBA also finds. So the playbooks are a little bit different, and the playbooks are also a little bit more adhered to the skill sets of those, like, phenomenal athletes. So ultimately, I also think what can make or break it is the coaching of these players. But then my friend was also like, well, you know, I feel like the NBA is also faster. Because at the bar, they also had the UNC Duke game going on at the same time. Keep in mind, this was a couple weeks ago, but we were going back and forth between watching one screen and the other screen, and he was just like, look how much faster the NBA game is versus the like college game. And I'm like, well, yeah, you can also argue that it's also due to the shot clock, right? Like, in an NBA game, the shot clock is 24 seconds, but in college, it's 30 seconds. So I think that might have something to do with it. And if you don't watch basketball, if you don't know what I'm talking about, the shot clock is the amount of time that you have to shoot the ball. Like, each team has a certain amount of time of possession that they have in order to shoot. And once the ball hits the rim, then the shot clock will reset. But one of my biggest gripes with the NBA is just the fact that they, like, just all create super teams. And I understand that there's, like, rating stuff and popularity contests with all of that. And this isn't an uncommon thing with sports. I mean, you see it everywhere. But at least in college ball, you don't have all these jerry-picked players going from one team to the other to try and win a chip. Plus, I feel like the game is a little less selfish because they only have a finite amount of time. So they all work together rather than this, like, all-for-one kind of an idea of, oh, well, I might not win a championship, but I'm still going to rack up my stats. I mean, it's kind of why it's hard for me to appreciate a guy like LeBron. Because as good as a guy as LeBron is, like, the dude only goes to teams where he knows that he's going to win games. And it pissed me off when he went to the Heat, like, years ago, because that was a team strictly dedicated to trying to win a championship. I mean, thank God they only won 2. Like, I was so happy that they only won 2, because they wanted to go for, like, 5, it seemed, given that stacked-ass team. Oh, but aren't championships exactly what make a player so great? Like, isn't that how we measure their greatness? Okay, well then how about you look at a guy like Reggie Miller or even Charles Barkley, and those guys are all considered like greats in their field. So, I mean, I don't necessarily know all the stats, but I would consider him top 15, at the very least top 20s. I don't know, say what you want, but I think that Steph Curry has actually done more to change the game because of his like shooting style. Like, LeBron actually had to change his game in order to adhere to what the game was becoming once Steph jumped into the league. So, I don't know, considering also that Steph has the same amount of rings that LeBron has, it's really hard for me to really kind of say, hey, LeBron really did a lot more to change the game than Steph has. Plus, I don't know, here's a hot take, but I feel like if MJ played in the league as long as LeBron did, I think LeBron would still be chasing MJ's stats. Plus, you gotta remember that Michael Jordan also lost a year to go play baseball. I don't know, maybe something else to kind of think about. What do you guys think? And you know what's really funny to me is the fact that people want to talk all this shit about the NFL being scripted. Never forget when former NBA Commissioner David Stern once was asked, like, oh, what's your ideal, like, NBA championship matchup? And he was like, oh, I want to see the Lakers versus the Lakers. Like, go fuck yourself. Like, nobody's going to go back and look at that and say how the NBA's not scripted, if not more scripted. Like, my God, I'm so sick and tired of it. And there's reasons like this why I refuse to watch the NBA. I have no interest in watching the NBA. I could give a fuck about the NBA. I mean, even now, like that stupid flop rule, that wasn't due to the NCAA. That was due to the NBA. But as a way to make things fair, they had to friggin' initiate that rule along with the NCAA. But you know, I'm watching these games and I've yet to see a flop rule initiated within the NCAA tournament. The NBA had such a massive issue with flopping that they had to turn it into like technical fouls. Like, my God, never forget, I think it was last year when LeBitch got poked in the eye and he was down on the floor for like 10 minutes. It's like, dude, wipe it off and get back to playing. I mean, my God, don't be such a fucking baby. You're 6'9", 250 pounds. You could be playing in the friggin' NFL if you really wanted to. And you're going to sit here and tell me that a little nick in your eye is causing you to be down on the floor for like 10 minutes? Grow a set. And it's reasons like that why, like, nobody thinks that LeBron would be able to play in Jordan's era. I mean, I watched the friggin' Last Dance, and the bad boy Pistons just abused the hell out of MJ. Plus, keep in mind, a fan gave MJ food poisoning, he was so afraid of him. Or even if you look at a guy like Shaq, where they had to implement all those hack-a-Shaq rules, because, like, guys would just foul the shit out of Shaq. And you're gonna sit there and tell me that a guy like LeBron, who has, like, a little minor injury, and he's going to be down on the floor for 10 minutes. You think he would be able to play in that era of basketball where it was way more physical? Absolutely not. And I don't give a shit. And I'm sorry. 4 for 10? 4 for 10. You're one of the greatest players of all time, and you're 4 for 10. That is not a good statistic. You're 40%. Brady is 7 for 10 in the NFL, and it's actually harder in the NFL to get a Super Bowl than it is for any other team to win a championship. So I don't even want to hear it. And I don't know if it's just because of the way that the game is changing. I mean, you have guys like Steph Curry who just totally like changed the game with the shooting ability. So now we're seeing like all these massive points go up. But the NBA is just becoming so soft nowadays anyways. I mean, explain to me how 4 guys, now I don't watch the NBA, but I do like look at some headlines. And I just remember between like January and February, we had like, I think 4 guys score 60 plus points a game. But Drew Holiday actually spoke up on the fact as to why he thought that guys were scoring this much. And if you don't know who he is, he's a player for the Celtics. And he actually said something along the lines of like, how can a guy score 60 plus points if players aren't as physical nowadays? And again, I could be wrong, but I think what he's trying to say is that teams are also lacking their ability on playing defense. Because say what you want about being able to like score all these 3-point shots, but a guy's not going to be able to score a 60 plus point game if these guys aren't also playing defense in the National Bitches League. Like the NBA is just becoming so much softer, and that's also just why I like college ball. I think it's a way more physical game, and the refs end up letting the players actually play. And I don't know. I mean, I've been watching some of these NCAA games, and I have yet to see a flop rule called. So I don't know. You guys be the judge on it. Plus, another reason why I think the NCAA is a little bit more like fun to watch is because all these guys only have a select amount of years to win a championship, like I said earlier. Like 90% of these players won't make the NBA. So for a lot of them, winning the NCAA tournament is really their only shot at winning anything. Whereas in the NBA, unless it's decided that you or the league, it comes to the conclusion that you're a washed player and you're not going to get signed, like there's always next year. I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think? For all you basketball fans out there, do me a favor and write in and let me know like whether you think I'm an idiot and if you think the NBA is actually worthwhile. But also, I'm going to go off on a little side note here. Because me telling you that story about my professor in college kind of reminded me of this. It's reminded me of a time in college where I had to take this gender studies class and we had a discussion on the WNBA. And why there might be a preference over watching the NBA versus the people wanting to watch the WNBA. And quite honestly, like, I think Bill Burr has a fantastic bit on this. So if you want to hear a great explanation on the WNBA versus the NBA, check out what he has to say on YouTube. But my personal idea is that I think money is made where money goes. So if the women's league isn't marketed and no one's filling in those seats, then yeah, no shit, they're not going to make as much. I mean, like, hell, back in the day, baseball players had day jobs. Like, unless you were someone prominent like Babe Ruth, and I think back in like the 1920s, Babe Ruth was actually making $52,000, which is kind of crazy in today's standards. But to put it in perspective, Ty Cobb, he was only making like $25,000, I think. And yes, I understand that there might be a racial disparity here with Jackie Robinson, but in 1960, I think he was only making like $35,000. So to argue that male athletes have always been in the forefront and have always been making money, I don't think that's necessarily the case. So male athletes weren't always paid super like substantially. I mean, these were all big name guys that I just listed here, but I mean, here's a guy that you probably have never heard of. He was a pitcher named Jim Palmer. He was a pitcher for the Orioles. And in 1966, this dude throws a complete game shutout in the World Series, and his salary was only $7,000. Tack on his $11,000 incentive bonus for the World Series win that he got, he made a staggering 18 grand. So that dude definitely had a day job on top of playing baseball. So arguably, I think where the WNBA is today is kind of in that same position of where the MLB was back in the day, where they're just not making as much. And I mean, I don't know, times have definitely changed because back in the day, all those seats were filled. But I mean, look at the WNBA game. I mean, you've only got like, what, 50 people in those stands? So yeah, if a league isn't necessarily getting marketed and if players aren't marketing themselves as to be like these prominent people, then of course they're not going to get paid. And it's funny because like my professor back in the day, she was like, well, maybe it doesn't get marketed because women are kept down and there's a perception of how women should look. And it's because they don't look feminine playing basketball. And you know, for a professor with all that schooling, you'd think that she'd be good at doing research. Because with that dumbassery, how do you explain Serena Williams making $300 million over the course of her career? Like, what? You think she made that much money looking fucking dainty? Like, as if men even give a shit about, like, women looking sweaty. No, we don't want to watch the games because the games are fucking boring. Like, lower the rim to 8 feet so you can dunk and make the game a little bit more exciting. I mean, if you just lower the rim, you can get more power play out of it. Like, some of these chicks, they actually have, like, crazy ball handling skills. I mean, they're just as good as the men, if not better in some cases. So you add that along with dunking, you see chicks alley-ooping and shit and going really hard in the paint, it opens up the playbook. Plus, like, if we've learned anything in these past, like, 10 years, women are just as competitive as men. And I would even venture to say that they're actually a little bit more competitive than men because they've had to work harder to get to where they're at now. But when it comes to the WNBA, if, like, women dunking, if you don't think that that would make the game a little bit more exciting, then you're fucking crazy. Especially along with some of the trash talk. Oh my god, I mean, have you never gotten into an argument with a woman? They fucking cut deep, and also women's memories are like elephants. Like, they will remember all the shit and all of the things that you've said before, and they will use that against you. Like, my god. But I'm sorry, I mean, I can only watch so many gallivanting layups and three-point shots. But alright, I feel like I've talked enough about this. But alright guys, I've talked for about like 25 minutes now, so I'm gonna let you go. But definitely write in to whoever's listening. You can reach me at lnbemedia@gmail.com. Let me know what your thoughts and opinions are about what I have to say about the NBA. Let me know if you guys like watching college ball just as much as I do, or if you prefer watching the NBA. Also, let me know what your stances are about what I had to say about the WNBA. And you guys know the drill. If you guys like this episode, please feel free to share this with a friend. Give me that 5-star rating, write up a review, and I'll catch up with you next week.